Yeah, I've got messages. No, I'm not going to check them. So this video might not seem hugely relevant. This is one of my random Q&A videos, some topics I've been talking about with friends, but this might not seem hugely relevant. Stick around to the end, I promise. It'll make sense. Hi everybody, welcome to Mike's Classic Pinball. I am Mike. So today's topic is about virtual pinball machines and why I think they have so much relevance to today's hobby of restoration. Now I want to give you a little bit of background. For a lot of people, virtual pinball and pinball simulation kind of came with Farsight Studios' Pinball Arcade, which is brilliant, by the way. They came out with multiple table packs and stuff like that. I love them. I have the whole collection, as well as with Pinball FX from Zen Studios. A ton of great tables, so much fun to play, and it's become a really big thing now that you can build a virtual pinball machine. You can build a whole cabinet and put a screen in it, put a screen up top, and some people even used to use PSP as the DMD, and build a full machine, digital plungers and everything. It's become a really hot thing to do these days. I've built pretty close to one before. I used to build MAME cabinets. I do want to build one again. But I think they're super cool. I love how some of them have come out. But let's kind of go backwards a little bit. For a lot of people, digital pinball and playing pinball on the computer kind of came with the Windows Space Cadet pinball. It was so much fun. I really used to love playing that thing to death. And then even further back than that, Sonic Spinball, Nintendo on the NES even had a vague approximation of Williams High Speed. PlayStation, they did Kiss Pinball. And so there's been digital pinball around for quite some time. But we're going to go even further back than that, back to when I studied it, because in researching for this video, it kind of brought up some nostalgia for me and some old memories that were long forgotten about my introduction into pinball, because I'd go to the arcade and I'd play games, and oftentimes pinball would be over there in the corner. I'd go play a game, and then I'd hit Pac-Man or Master Blaster or something like that. But at home, I would play some pinball as well. Now, I am a child of that blessed, glorious decade of the 70s. I came about in this world when Nolan Bushnell was changing the world. And it was a wonderful time. And I remember a lot of my friends growing up, we were kind of in this time of the birth of home computing. It was a fairly new thing. Now it's very common. This has, 10,000 times the power of, huge things that people used to have at home. And I was an Atari boy. I remember I had a 600 XL and an 800 XL throughout different times. I actually had several different Ataris, but I was an Atari guy. And we had an Atari 2600 that my father bought. And, the friends would come over, we'd play Pac-Man, and we'd play E.T., and then every once in a while we'd hit KB Toys and we'd go pick up like K-Razy Shootout or K-Razy Antics, some of that fun stuff. And I just really loved playing around on it. But there was, around that time, 82, 83, a gentleman named Trip Hawkins, who is a god, created a company called Electronic Arts. Now later, about a decade later, he'd do what I really loved him for, and he created a company called 3DO. 3DO was the best game console ever created. I'm sorry, it's my opinion, yes, but it's fact. Okay, 3DO was awesome. And some of you are like, what the fuck is a 3DO? Go look them up. They're sweet. They were the best system out there. They came out in the early 90s, and they benchmarked way past anything else that even came years later. Brilliant system, wonderful games, and so much fun to play. Like today, if you were to put on this side of the table a PS5 and an Xbox X or whatever else, and all manner of neat stuff, and over here an old beat up 3DO, and you can say, you can have one. I'm taking the 3DO. All day, I'll take the 3DO. I loved them. I'm actually on the hunt for one, but I don't want to pay the drug money prices that eBay is asking for them. But they were a brilliant system, and I love them to death. And they had some pinball on there. But I wickedly digress. Let's go back. 1982, 1983. What we had was this. This is Electronic Arts Pinball Constructor Set. And this thing was fire. This thing was bomb. It was so much fun because you could go in and play pinball tables, but you could also create pinball tables. That was the biggest part of it, was make your own pinball tables. You could, place the flippers, place the kickers, and then go put pop bumpers and lanes and guides, rollovers, and you could make this table and have it score the way you wanted. It was so much fun, and it's one of the things, as I think back on it, that really started to get me interested into the workings of pinball machines. Because, if this was lit, then this might score differently. And my friends, a lot of my friends were Atari people too. My wife was actually an Apple person growing up. And then we knew some people that were, Commodore people. They were, they had all of their fun too. And then a couple of people that were Texas Instruments people. We didn't invite them over very often. But it was so much fun to sit and play the Pinball Constructor Set, and Electronic Arts was just in such a height back then, and they just got better and better and better. But then came the 3DO later. But so this thing was the bomb, and I loved it. Now, let's fast forward a little bit. 2010 or so, I've talked about this ad nauseum before. About 2010, I started to really get back into pinball, really hardcore, and I picked up Williams and Gottlieb's Pinball Hall of Fame, and I actually had them initially on the Wii, but they also had it on the PS2, the Vita, and some other systems as well. And those were great because here's actual tables. Here's tables that accurately represented and accurately playable. And then that ended up becoming, with Farsight Studios, ended up becoming the Pinball Arcade and its different versions of that. Now you can get over 100 tables in the Pinball Arcade. And like I said, I broke down and I bought all of them. I have a huge library. But also back in about 2011, 2012, I discovered kind of the crux of things. And that was visual pinball and future pinball. Now these were not only where you could play games, but where you could make them. And I became fascinated, and I intentionally found them. I was looking for ways to simulate pinball machines on the computer, and these fit the bill perfectly. I could go in and I could make a game that I wanted to make, and in fact, on Future Pinball, I think 2011 or so, I actually made a table based on one of my favorite TV shows, Firefly. I'll show you a picture of the table right here. It's pretty cool. No, it was garbage. It was crap to play, but I only just started learning. And you could code how everything worked, and you could code these interactions inside the game. Plus, you could get a plethora of games that other people had made, and you could get classic tables. So I started building my library of games off of that, and I would make some games, I'd code some games. Now the coding system for visual pinball, and especially future pinball, vaguely like Python. It's fairly easy to use coding system, and that became relevant to me later. But so I started to build this collection of games, and then I just kind of left it alone for a little bit. Just had this nice pile of games, and later on, reasonably recently, I decided that I'd like to have virtual copies of all of the games that I had either had or worked on or owned or, flipped or whatever. And I decided to start building a library of that. Now, at the time, I was working on a game called Swingers. And I couldn't get certain functions to work right. And I dived through what I could find of instructions, YouTube videos, through the schematics, and some stuff still wasn't working quite right. And it was tough for me to tell what needed to score how and how stuff needed to work back and forth. And that flipped a fucking switch in my head. I went and I got the table on Future Pinball. And I would take and go into the table layout, and I would grab that one piece and see what it was labeled. Then I would go through the code and I'd see, oh, this scores like this. And it scores in this fashion when this is active. And so it was almost, for me, better than looking at a schematic or a video, because now I could see exactly how this should work. And that was why they became so relevant to me, because now I could use these to see if I was repairing EM games properly. Now, there's such a big library out there. Most likely, the game you've got or the game you're working on is available somewhere. VP Forums or Pinball Nirvana, you can get it somewhere. And so I started to use it as a tool when I'm doing a game, like even recently on Spanish Eyes. I'd play Spanish Eyes, I'd go through, make sure everything looked good, and then I go play the game that I had restored, and it played the same, and it played well. And so for me, that's kind of how I really got even more these days into virtual pinball, and how I think it's a really good tool. So you can go get a game, and odds are, like I said, it's probably out there somewhere. You just got to hunt a little bit. Load it into virtual pinball or visual pinball 8, 9X, whichever, or future pinball, which is my personal favorite, and play it and see, oh, this is how this works. This is how this should play. And it's a brilliant tool for how to make your game run properly. So that's why I use them more. And my collection of games is now massive, well into a couple of thousand. But so if you haven't tried them, I'll link to Future Pinball down in the description. But if you haven't tried it, play with it. It doesn't need a massively, hugely wonderful computer to play it properly, but it doesn't hurt either. So give it a try. It sounds silly, but I found it to just be such a fun tool. Here's this resource that's been pounding me in the side of the head for so long, and now all of a sudden it hit me. It's a great tool. And that's why I wanted to share it with you today and tell you, go check it out. Go try it. Go see what you think of it. I recommend it. It's worth a shot. So, and if you do decide to start building, show me what you got. I'm considering maybe doing some more videos about virtual pinball machines, and maybe even my build that I'm going to do later. But I've had some friends talk to me about, hey, how do you code games inside of this? There's lots of resources out there, but maybe for giggles, if it's something you guys are interested in, I'll put together a couple of videos and we'll screen record and go through how to code. How to code a game in this and how to set one up and put one together. It's for giggles. We'll pick a theme and go with it. We'll do it as a group. Let me know if that's something that you'd be interested in. And as usual, go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, and share this around. I lost some subscribers when I told them I was a Republican. Or it could have nothing to do with that, but I lost a couple of subscribers and I want to get them back. Let's get me to 130 next week. So thank you guys for joining me today. I hope this video was fun for you and that you were able to see a couple of cool things. And Skylab is hopefully going to be done this weekend. I'm doing a lot more filming. I've got everything set to finish off this weekend, and I don't have a lot of other stuff that I'm supposed to be doing this weekend either. It's a pinball weekend. So we're going to go ahead and do some more of that this weekend, and then after that we'll get started on the Bally Champ and start rebuilding the back box for that and put the foam in the it's a whole other thing, but I think my best bet, rather than rebuilding the whole damn cabinet, is I'm just going to line the underside with AB foam on the Champ and then shave that down, and that should shore it up properly. We'll see. Or I could be completely up in the fucking night with that and have no idea what I'm doing, which is the more likely scenario. But so thank you for joining me, guys, and we'll see you again on the next video. Have a great weekend.